I think without getting too philosophical, it's kind of undermining the whole idea that there is truth, that there is true journalism, real news, real reporting.
Alice, so great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So how much disinformation did you find at this year's Olympics?
Well, I studied a 10-day period that led up to the start of the games and a few days into the games, and I found a total of 28 false claims that were disguised as fake news reports. I know others have emerged since the start of the games too.
So Alice, you found dozens of examples online. What kinds of messages do the videos and images contain?
Well, nearly all of them were targeting Ukrainians, whether that was Ukrainian refugees living in Europe and in Milan and in Italy, or whether that was Ukrainian guests at the Olympics, or quite prominently also Ukrainian athletes.
You mentioned that you were tracking this before even the games started. Why is that
Yes.
important? Why is that important for our viewers to be thinking about?
Well, with an international event like the Olympic Games, you often get a kind of preemptive discrediting of any Ukrainians who might be taking part, making sure that any kind of Ukrainian heroism is preemptively discredited by this campaign. So we always make sure to keep an eye out before any Olympics, any World Cups, any major tournaments, and look out for these kind of fake news reports.
And why the Ukrainians, Alice?
Why the Ukrainians? This is a campaign that's been linked fairly conclusively to Russia. So, of course, the idea is to undermine the Ukrainians in the eyes of Europeans. Most of the reports are in English, actually, and often imitate American or European outlets. So they're aimed at influencing the opinions of these Western countries. And these are, of course, the countries that support Ukraine in their war against Russia. So I guess the idea behind this campaign, or one of the ideas behind this campaign, would be if we can undermine that support and undermine it politically, that can translate to real difference on the battlefield.
I want to show, our viewers a Canadian example that went viral. Let's take a look.
So this is it. This is the Athletes Village in Milan. Not a particularly big village. It's normally bigger.
Now that's CBC's chief correspondent and national anchor, Adrienne Arsenault. She was in Italy at the games and made this initial video. But here's where the information went wonky.
Specifically, the Ukrainian team's accommodation has been placed as far away as possible from others participating in the Olympics. And it was done on purpose. It was a correction of the mistakes that had been made in Paris. In Paris, the Ukrainian team proved to be extremely toxic, provoking conflicts with other athletes.
Of course, none of that is true. Adrienne never said that. It's AI-generated tech used to mimic her voice and to spew disinformation. Alice, what stood out to you when you looked at that CBC clip?
That particular example what stood out to me first was how easy it was to scroll past it. For me, as a fact checker, that didn't immediately stand out as a fake news report. It used someone's real face, someone recognizable. So that was the first thing. And then what stood out to me later as I started tracking this claim was how far it had spread. In Russia, it even spread to mainstream media. It was mentioned by a very popular political commentator. And it seems to have spread more organically than we are used to for a claim like this. And I think part of that is down to the way it's done really effectively, splicing in a real journalistic report with AI-generated voices to spread the whole thing.
Yeah, even in Canada, it was causing confusion. I know CBC itself had to put out, a full video that was like, this is the difference between the real and the fake. Is there any way, Alice, for people to be able to tell when they're watching these things, that is not real?
Look out for the kind of narratives that you wouldn't expect. Look out especially for narratives that target countries like France, Germany, Ukraine. If it feels a little bit off, if the voice sounds a little bit flat in the second half and you're only seeing stock footage, these are all things to look for. So the answer is, if you see something on social media that kind of rings any alarm bells, make sure you go and check it on the official website or the official social media channels of the outlet, because sometimes the first half can be real, but the second half is not.
Alice, what do you think is the ultimate goal of these disinformation campaigns?
So like I say, of course, to discredit Ukraine. These reports often spread far and wide with and are attributed to, say, CBC. which gives them added credibility. But also, many think to flood the fact checkers. Going through and fact checking each claim takes time. So if you're pumping out 8 or 10 a day, you can try and overwhelm, if you're a propagandist, the people who kind of are your enemy. And then there's also generally just undermining faith in a logo. So I guess part of the idea behind this campaign, maybe longer term, would be that, a video might have the Reuters logo on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's from Reuters, and kind of undermining all this trust in journalistic institutions that has been built up over a long time.
Alice, when you look at all of the junk online, what concerns you the most?
I think without getting too philosophical, it's kind of undermining the whole idea that there is truth, that there is true journalism, real news, real reporting. I think flooding the internet with these fake news reports is, in a twisted way, quite an effective way of undermining our faith in journalism, which, considering we've relied for hundreds, thousands of years on these kinds of reports from places that we can't see, like the idea that these can often be fake and attributed falsely to a real established outlet, I think is really alarming. And yeah, if we see it grow in volume around events like we have seen for this Olympics, it could be very damaging in the future.